For the world you love, your will be done. Let your will be done in me. For you and you alone. Awake my soul, and see.
Good evening. This will be our last Connect Group meeting for the year, and we will bring to a conclusion this evening our discussion that's occurred over the last several months about various characteristics that we need to have in our lives if we're going to enhance our relationships with each other. The characteristic that we're going to talk about tonight is politeness. But I want to start not talking about politeness, but by talking about something that I think politeness is rooted in. And that's a term that I think we hear every once in a while called common courtesy. Common courtesy, I've asked several people, including Barrett, what is common courtesy? And had them define it to me, because I was just curious to see how people understood the term. And it's been fascinating. Most people agree that when you say common courtesy, basically what you're saying is there's a common set of values that we share in regard to how people ought to treat other people. And we just assume that everybody ought to treat each other in that way, according to that standard. It's a common standard that we share. It seems to me like that in this day and age, we're kind of losing that sense of common courtesy. People, maybe it's because people are maybe more wrapped up in themselves. There's more kind of narcissism in our culture or whatever. But I just sense and I think see that we're losing that virtue of common courtesy that politeness is rooted in. That I think is very, very important. You know, when you go into a theater, now, before they ever show the film, what are they going to do? They're going to put a couple of slides up, at least one warning, maybe two. If you got a cell phone, turn it off. Don't be texting. Don't be taking calls while the movie's showing, because that's rude and it bothers other people, and you ought not to do that. Well, now, I completely agree with that. What bothers me is that we have to remind people about that. Now, I mean, it's okay, you know, Terry reminds us on Sunday morning, if you got your cell phone, turn it off or whatever. And I realize that every once in a while, you know, we forget, but it just seems to me like more and more people don't care. I mean, they'll sit right there in the movie, and if it was up to them, they wouldn't care if the people around them are disrupted and can't enjoy the film because they're talking to their buddy on the phone, or they got this text and they feel like they just have to respond to it. And yet common courtesy would dictate that you don't do that. I have a good friend, and I was talking to him recently, and he was telling me about the barking dogs that live next door. And he has a really, really, really hard time sleeping at night because these dogs bark all night long. He said it seems like if there's a shadow, if anything moves, these dogs start barking. He's tried and tried to talk with his neighbor and let the neighbor know, would you please put your dogs up or shut them up in some way? And the neighbor pays absolutely no attention to him. And I mean, that's another example of this loss of just a common courtesy. Now, it seems to me that politeness is kind of an outgrowth of common courtesy. If we're treating other people according to a standard that everybody pretty much agrees with, I believe that one of those standards is that we be polite to each other. You know, it's interesting. The Lord doesn't let that slide by. I don't know if you've ever thought about this or not, but in the book of Luke, in chapter 7, starting in verse 36, he's invited to a dinner by a Pharisee. During the course of the dinner, remember, this woman comes in and she starts washing his feet with her tears and drying them with her hair and putting ointment on his feet. This Pharisee is put off by this. And Jesus sees this reaction. And he says, Simon, I've got something to say to you. What he says right off is this. Basically, and I'm summing up here with a Rouse summation, buddy, you've been rude to me. You invited me to your house, and you did not greet me with a kiss, which is standard, okay? You didn't do that. You didn't give me water to wash my feet. You didn't hand me any ointment to put on, which was another standard thing that you did for your guest. And so you invited me to dinner, and then you were rude to me. You were not polite. Now, obviously, Jesus expected to be treated with politeness, all right? To be treated with respect. And he takes offense when the Pharisee doesn't do that. And I think all of us appreciate being treated with respect. And we don't like it when we feel like we've been slighted in that way, when people are, in essence, impolite to us. Now, I think that politeness brings some real blessings. And let me just quickly enumerate, because spend some time talking about some other things. But first of all, I think that principle of politeness holds true when it comes to that principle that Jesus lays down in Matthew chapter 7 and verse 12, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If I want people to be polite, if I want them to treat me with respect, should I not do the same? One of the things that made me cringe several years ago was an article that I read which said that a lot of restaurant workers hate Sunday noons. And the reason that they hate Sunday noons is because some of the most rude people and worst tempers will come in for lunch on Sunday from church. And when I read that, I was like, nah, that's a hit piece on, surely Christian people don't act like that. I've got a couple of kids who have waitressed and waitered, and so I asked them. Melissa said, oh, Dad, yeah. She said, I've got a lot of people that I work with that don't want to work Sunday noons, because that's absolutely true. The people that come in from church are some of the rudest and some of the worst tippers that we'll have all week. There are people who don't want to work that shift. Brother, I can't even put into words how sad that is. That is ridiculous. I mean, it ought to be just the opposite. It ought to be that waiters and waitresses are standing in a line hoping that they can get some tables on a Sunday noon because Christians are coming in, and those are going to be the kindest, nicest, most grateful people that are there and the best tippers that they have. What does that say about us as Christian people if, as a whole, we're perceived as impolite and selfish? If we want to share the message, if we want people to listen to us, we've got to tear down walls, not put walls up. And politeness is something that tears walls down. Politeness is something that opens doors. And if we as a people are to be known by our love, how can I say that I really care about somebody if I'm being rude to them? It's only if I'm being polite to them that I am showing them the kind of attitude that I need to show to them. Another factor I think involved in politeness is politeness just takes a lot of heat out of the air. It just calms things down. Several years ago, I was grabbing a hamburger at the Sonic down here, and I started to back up, and I backed right into a guy who was driving behind me. I mean, I looked in my rearview mirror, I checked both ways. I didn't have one of those backup cameras in the car I was in at the time, and I'm making excuses. I just didn't see the guy coming, and I backed right into him. Well, he got out of his vehicle, and as he came around, I could tell, boy, he was hot. And I just said, hey, I'm sorry, man. My fault. I backed into you. I've got insurance. I'll show you my driver's license. We'll fix this. We'll take care of it again. I'm really sorry. This is all my fault. I just didn't see you. Man, he cooled down. He was just as friendly as he could be. It completely eliminated any heat from the situation, and it was fine. It was fine. Now, if I got out of the car, stormed back to him and said, "Where'd you come from? I didn't see you coming." We could have gotten a fist fight right there in the parking lot probably. It's amazing how just being polite and forthright can calm down a situation like that. People like to be treated politely and with respect. It's very, very hard to go wrong with that. And that certainly holds true, let me conclude, in our relationship with each other. Because I believe that politeness is a door opener to communication. Showing respect for the other person and showing an interest in them and trying to treat them kindly and rightly is going to encourage them to open up and to talk and to share. And that's what our fellowship is all about, is encouraging each other and talking with each other. And politeness is key to that. And so I would urge you in your discussion this evening as we talk about the importance of politeness and ways in which we can utilize that to strengthen our relationships. Let's take this as something that's not just some kind of social nicety. Let's take this as an important spiritual reality, something that needs to be a part of our lives, a characteristic of who we are every day. God bless. Have a great Christmas. Thank you.
In our hearts